milk many of the laws that apply to this very important Torah prohibition of eating meat and milk together. It says in the Torah 3 times the same verse, Lo tevashel gedi b'chaleb imo. What does that mean? Do not cook a little goat in the milk of its mother. So you may think, first of all, there's several questions about this verse. The verse is not so easily understood. Why? Because it's talking about only a goat. So you may think, when it comes to the other animals, maybe it's okay. Only the goat is the problem. There's also another issue that is talking about that the goat only in the milk of its mother, but if it's, say, milk of another goat or another animal altogether, so you may think it's allowed. But the sages tell us that this is not the case. The reason why it says, we have a tradition, right, about this, the sages have a tradition, that the reason why it says this prohibition 3 times in the Torah, that it's coming to tell you 3 different things, because it's superfluous. Otherwise, the Torah doesn't need to mention 3 times the same prohibition. So it's telling you that what? That there's 3 types of prohibitions regarding meat and milk. One is that to cook them together, and one is to eat them together, and also to get benefit from them. So what does that mean? Cooking them together obviously means you can't cook them together. That means you put them in the same pot or whatever, and you cook them together. This is called the prohibition of cooking meat and milk. Then we have the prohibition of getting hana, getting benefit from it. What does that mean? The benefit means that you're selling it and making some money. You don't want to eat it yourself, but you're selling it to a non-Jew who's allowed to eat that, right? The non-Jew has no prohibition for these things. So therefore, since he's allowed to do it, since he's allowed to eat it, sell it to him and let him enjoy it. But no, Torah tells you, no, you're not allowed to get benefit from it. So what does that mean? You're not allowed to make money off of that, or any other kind of benefit that you may receive. Favors, whatever it is, barter, whatever it may be, you're not allowed to benefit from that. And also that means you're not allowed to enjoy it, right? To smell it also is a problem. So this is the idea of getting benefit from it. So then we have the actual eating, right? The eating means that you can't eat them also, meat and milk. But since the prohibition of eating is brought down in the language of cooking, so therefore said the Chazal, say the sages, that the prohibition only applies when it's cooked together, according to the Torah. What does that mean? That according to the Torah, if it was not cooked together, therefore it would be allowed. So what does that mean? According to the Torah, a sandwich with salami and cheese together, you put them into one sandwich, according to the Torah, that would be allowed because they were never cooked together. But the rabbis came though and made that also prohibited, and said even though you didn't cook them together, you still should not eat them together. So no sandwiches, no combination plates, whatever it is, right? Eating them together and in one shot, in one meal. We'll talk about that, exactly what that means. But the point is, right, that we don't want to eat them together in any way, fashion, or form, more or less, right? That's the idea. We have to get into more details about that, but before we get into details about that, we have to first discuss, right, that why does it use the language that the sages also explained? Why does it use the language of the goat with the mother's milk? What, only that is prohibited? Everything else is permitted? So the sages said, no, that's not the reason why it said it this way. The reason why it was said this way in the Torah, it was because in those days, in that generation that the Torah was given, this was the common thing, that they used to cook the goat in the mother's milk. There was some kind of a thing like this, some kind of practice. So because of that, it was expressed in that language, which was common in those days. But the sages tell us that all these things are prohibited, whether it's the milk of the mother or the milk of some other animal or whatever it may be, right? All these things are prohibited. But we're talking about animals which are like farm animals, right? And we're not talking about the wild animals. Because wild animals, the prohibition there is not from the Torah. It's only from the sages. But according to the Torah, all these animals, like, cattle basically, right? Sheep, goats, cows, and also, right? Basically that's the idea. Those animals are the prohibitions from the Torah. So meaning what? That any combination of those animals with the milk and the meat together would be prohibited from the Torah. This would be the idea. So therefore, right, this pretty much covers what we just said. Pretty much covers all the variations, all the possibilities that one may encounter in daily life. Pretty much, it's all covered. So it's all prohibited basically. And now, right, came the sages and also said, you know what? Even though the Torah only prohibited like these kinds of farm animals, these cattle kind of things, now came the sages and said also the birds as well, the fowl, and also the wild animals, right, venison, deer, right, these things that run around and they're kosher. Also, those animals as well, they also cannot be eaten with milk. So everything became prohibited because the rabbis wanted to cover the whole gamut, the whole possibility of having these things together. Now, before we go further into the halacha, into the laws of these things, particulars, first we have to discuss one thing. The question is, why is it prohibited to have meat and milk together? What is the reason for this prohibition? Well, the truth is, that we could always say the obvious answer. The obvious answer would be, well, why are you even asking about the reasons? It's all decree from God. God didn't want it. He's looking to test us to see if we're obedient, if we obey His laws, if we go in His ways. So that could be the best answer, right? But the truth is that there are also, by the way, some issues, some aspects of this that also are explained by the sages, that this combination of meat and milk together causes all kinds of damage in the world. So we'll explain to you exactly what that means. First of all, right, the sages say that the meat is the symbol of din, of judgment in this world. And milk, dairy, is a symbol of kindness. So therefore, these two elements in the world are like diverging, they're opposites. And therefore the Torah told us, don't put these things together and eat them together, because you're mixing two diverging elements of these two things, and that can cause a bad reaction in the world, bad reaction in your body, bad reaction in your soul, bad reaction in the world at large. So what does that mean? That means that when you put din, when you put judgment and chesed, kindness together, this can cause a bad reaction. So one example of that is what it says in the Zohar Kadosh. It says in the Zohar Kadosh, the Zohar has its own approach to this prohibition of meat and milk. So what it says is basically that we're not allowed to eat meat and milk in the same meal or in the same hour of the day. That's a prohibition, more or less. So comes the Zohar and tells you, and if a person does that, if he does eat meat and milk together, in the same hour or in the same meal, so what happens is the damage is done, great damage. What damage is done? That if a person happens to procreate during that time, during that period that he had that meal, what happens is that if he impregnated his wife, so that child that will come out from that pregnancy will be a child with a bad soul, from the evil side, from the bad side. So he'll have a child which is going to be very, unfortunately, very problematic, very, a lot of issues with him, right? There's always going to be suffering, there's always going to be all kinds of irregular behavior, degenerate behavior, all kinds of, right, hooligan, all kinds of stuff.
Yes. Is it worse than a Bal Nida?
I'm sorry?
Like a child of Nida, is it worse than that?
That's a good question. Well, I guess you could say that it's worse, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Because, you know why, I'll tell you? That even the Ben Nida can be, a person who's tzaddik, can make a tikkun on his neshama, become a tzaddik. But here what we're saying is basically that this neshama seems to come from a very bad place. From the Sitra Acha, from
deep inside?
Right, exactly. So that means that the nature of the neshama is very bad, so it may be impossible to fix a child like that. There may be no hope. So basically, right, that's what we're getting. That's what the Zohar Kadosh says, and this is the reason why it tells you to refrain from eating these two things together, right? So it's important to understand, right, that there's a lot of dangers involved, there's a lot of issues involved. Also, what happens is that when you eat these two types of things together, which are opposites, sometimes what happens, it also has all kinds of effects on the body as well. As we mentioned before, when you eat, like for example, fish and meat together, or fish and dairy, there are some who say, right, that even nowadays there's an issue that one heats up the body and one cools the body. So when you have these two opposing forces coming together, what happens is that it can become, it can cause a sickness, right? Leprosy in the body, right? All kinds of things. So here also, right, you can assume that these two diverging forces will also maybe cause some health issues as well. It's pretty safe to assume that may also happen. So basically, right, what we're doing is basically harming the soul, that's for sure, right? And maybe even the body as well. So therefore, right, something that really should be avoided. So this is pretty much, there's also a lot more depth to this, right? A lot more reasons brought down. But I don't think it's really so important to get into these reasons. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because the point is, right, that when God gave us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, prohibitions in the Torah, the most important thing is not to understand the reason behind it. The most important thing is to keep it. You're right, to do it, So, okay, you got the reason, you don't got the reason, what difference does it make? You know that when you don't do the will of God, it won't be good for you, you're going to have problems, you're going to have issues, you're going to have all kinds of suffering, God forbid, right? So that's the reason, that's the best reason that a person should do all these things. Why look for all kinds of, rational things or rational issues? You don't need all that. Right, like as the Midrash says, we mentioned, right, there's a Midrash that says that why does the Kadosh Baruch Hu give us all these laws, dietary laws, and so forth and so on? The reason is because to test us to see if we're obedient, if we have the humility to obey, and not be arrogant, and try to make our own way in life, to be independent, whatever, all kinds of things like this, right? So this is the reason why He gave us. Okay, so we got the idea. So I want to tell you, right, now, getting to some halakha. Right? So we said, right, the halakha is like this, right? That first of all, the law tells us that. 1 second, I'm sorry. Yes. Scrolling down to the next chapter.
Rabbi, what about you told the story one time about Rambam, how the French rabbis came to him and they said, "Oh, what is this?" He put the uterus, not the uterus. He put the milk, the breast of the cow.
Yes.
The udders of the cow.
I'm going to talk about that a little bit. This issue with the in Hebrew that's called kachal.
In today's day and age, like Hawaiians also, I know Persians also, they eat it.
Ah, they do eat it.
Yeah,
okay. There's a special way that has to be prepared.
Right, has to be specific.
So anyway, the point is, right, tells us now that you cannot also, besides the fact that we said you're not allowed to cook them together, you're not allowed to get benefit from it, right? You're not allowed to eat it. Those are the 3 prohibitions that we have. So besides that, we also have, right, that you shouldn't put them on the same table as well. What does that mean? If you're eating one, right, let's say you're eating now meat meal, so you shouldn't have the dairy also on the table as well, because we're concerned you may come to eat it, together.
Right.
This is the reason why.
Right, but what about what if you have the dairy meat on the table, but you eat the dairy and then the meat after?
That's a different issue, but we're talking about having it on the table. We're not talking about eating it. The fact that you have it on the table together when you're eating, that's also a problem. No matter what you do.
Even if you're alone.
Right, exactly. Even if you're alone, yes. So what's the problem? We're afraid you're going to eat them together. So therefore the sages said, right, don't put these things together, meat and milk together on one table. So what should a person do? Right? There's a few solutions for this. It's not the end of the world. Mm-hmm. So we say, right, that first of all, we have to know who's not allowed to put them there. If we're talking about, let's say, 2 different people, right, coming to eat, let's say, they're eating like in a lunchroom, in some factory, whatever, in a workplace. So this one is eating dairy, this one is eating meat. So the question is, can they have it on the same table or not, right? So the truth is that there's no prohibition in some cases. Why is that? Because if they don't really eat together, each one has his own lunchbox, and they're not going to eat together, they're not going to share, So if there's no chance they're going to share, what does that mean? They don't even know each other. They're not friends, So he's not going to offer him something to eat from his own lunchbox. They're not going to do that. They're not friends. So if they're not friends, say the sages that it's allowed.
I have an interesting question.
Yeah.
For married people as well, it's very interesting. I'll bring in that context. let's say you're a man, you're sitting at your table, your wife is sitting across from you.
Yeah.
You're eating meat, she's eating dairy.
Right. Yes.
After you finish everything, can you kiss her after? Like, let's say, I don't know. I know it sounds crazy, but you see, you get what I'm saying, right? Okay. You have to bring in that context. There's all the context.
Yeah, I understand you. No, it's a good question. Okay, well, what's that too? But I just want to make, first of all, to point out the basic idea, right? Is that what? That there's also another solution. And let's say even the people know each other, right? Let's say like husband and wife, whatever, or two friends eating together on one table. So what would be the solution? One wants to eat dairy, one wants to eat meat. So what they do is basically they have to use, let's say, one solution would be to use two tablecloths, because that makes a sign, right? It makes a sign. It's a recognition that you shouldn't touch that stuff over there. That's like your border. You have a border there. Once you pass that border, right, you're trespassing. You're getting you could be arrested by the ICE agents. Whatever.
Okay, there's one tablecloth like this, like a person.
Border patrol. Yeah.
Right. But what if it's the same color? As long as it's two different cloths, right?
Right, two different cloths. This way it's recognizable, right? That each one is eating his own meal, his own thing, whatever. So this way they will remember not to cross over to the other side.
Same with the bounty. Like
I'm sorry?
A sheet of bounty or whatever.
Yeah, so that would also apply, let's say, for instance, another example would be that one is using a tablecloth, the other one is not using no tablecloth. That also is recognizable.
Right.
Anything like this, right? Another thing, right, the sages suggest to do is also to put something in between that shows you, right, that makes a sign that, don't cross over that line. What does that mean? For instance, what I used to do, like, I'll tell you, give me an example. I used to, eat with my friends in the yeshiva in Israel. So what we used to do is I used to take off my watch and put it like in between us. So there was like there was a sign that something is between you.
Right.
Same thing can be, you can use other objects as well. Any object which is recognizable. Now the thing is like this, right, that if it's something which is regularly there anyway, that's not going to help you. Because that's not really a sign.
Right.
It's always there, So that's not really going to help you. So it has to be something which is not normally there.
Makes sense.
For instance, like your computer bag or whatever, you don't usually put it there. So now you put it there, whatever, or your computer or whatever it is, and maybe sometimes you do put your computer. That's a different story. But if you don't, if you don't use your computer over there, or whatever it may be, right, your phone probably would not be so good because, usually you put the phone on the table. It's very common, so it's not really going to help you much. So you have to use something which is not usually there. So what that means is that you cannot use like a bottle of soda because that's usually there anyway, So, I'm going to put a bottle of soda between us. Okay, so what? What does that help you? It's always there,
Something not edible, something that you don't usually use on a table.
Right. It's something which is not usually there, Okay. That's all, basically, that's the basic idea.
Okay. And what about the mixing of the meat and the milk? Like, let's say one party ate it, other party ate it too.
What does that mean?
The husband and wife situation.
Yeah, that what?
Is it allowed?
What?
Can you kiss her after or no?
Kissing shouldn't be a problem as long as the mouth is clean. You know what I'm saying? You don't have some cream cheese on your lips.
Right. Okay. Because you're saying there cannot be no contamination, basically. What about in the fridge? Can you put it together?
In the fridge. Yeah, actually, this is discussed, by the way, what you're talking about. It's discussed in the contemporary poskim. Does a person need to have one fridge which is dairy and one fridge which is meat? So the answer is absolutely not, right? And the reason is because since each one is his own package, right? So there's no issue of their something getting together or touching each other, whatever. So therefore, a person does not require two refrigerators, I'll tell you something really funny, that one time I was listening to Maran, Morin Rabin, and he was talking exactly about this issue. He said, some people are stringent to have two refrigerators. So he says, I personally don't have two refrigerators. So he tells the crowd, he says, why don't I have it? So it's because I can't afford it to have two fridges. They're too expensive for me. That's what it said. Okay, but I think he was joking around. I think he could have afforded it. At that age, he was already wealthy enough to afford it.
Saying it for the later.
Yeah, he was trying to think like whatever, trying to be like whatever. I mean, I definitely could afford it.
Then again,
he thought it was really important, but he probably thought it was not important. That's the whole thing. not something really,
There are a lot of things that he was rather lax in those regards, like more realistic in that regard.
No, there was nothing lax there, but
Not lax,
just
but
I mean, he wasn't stringent in certain things. There were certain things that he wasn't stringent. There was reasons for that also. There's reasons for everything. There's a reason for everything. So anyway, the point is that that as we said, you're not allowed to have them together. But if you have some kind of a sign between you, so then you're okay, right? As we said, that's cool. Whatever it is, whether it's the tablecloth or some kind of an object that's not usually there, that's the way it is, right? Okay, so then, right, as we said, we're talking about two people who are eating there. But what about if they're just putting on the table as storage? Like using the table for storage, or just like as a serving source. In other words, they're taking from that table and serving to a different place, right? So the question is, can they put two together? Dairy and milk, dairy and meat together on the same table, two dishes, let's say, one tray, the other tray is like this, one tray is dairy, one tray is meat. Are they allowed to do that? So it says the Shulchan Aruch that you're allowed to do that. It's not a problem. Why is that? Because since they're not eating there, they're just holding the stuff until you get served, whatever. So therefore, we don't have a concern that they're going to mix those two things together. It's not really an issue. So therefore, in a case like that, you're allowed to put them together. The only time you're not allowed to put them together is when you're eating there.
Right.
That's it. That's what we said, right? So as we also said that we're also talking about people who know each other. But if they don't know each other, they're not going to share for sure because they didn't know each other. So therefore, for sure, it's allowed.
Well, I'm sorry. Most Ashkenazim, they're more strict in these regards. They completely keep everything separate.
Yeah. They have several stringencies. Their stringencies go throughout the Shulchan Aruch. This is just one example, but they have good stuff there.
Okay. When it comes to the plates.
Yeah.
Different plates used for different things. How do you?
Right. So the issue with the plates is like this, basically, right? That the Torah doesn't really require you to have separate plates for dairy and cheese, dairy and meat, and the rabbis really didn't also make this kind of like a takana. But what happened was that this became like a custom after a while. Before, let's say, I don't know, many hundred years already, this custom came in. That we don't write. Way before that, right? We don't write. The Ramban writes it, right? We're talking about 800 years ago, whatever. 700 years ago. So the Ramban already says, right, that the custom was already at that time not to use one set of dishes for both dairy and meat. It's because why? We're concerned maybe you didn't wash it good, whatever. There's all kinds of issues there, So therefore we say, right, a person should preferably have separate everything for everything. What does that mean? Knives, forks, spoons, right? Plates, everything, right? Exactly. What about glasses, right? So there's a difference between the Sfaradim and Ashkenazim, right? The Sfaradim don't require separate glasses.
Right.
So what does that mean? When it comes to drinking glasses, right? You're allowed to use for both dairy and meat. And why? What's the reason? What's the reason for that? Because we, right, the Sfaradim, we hold that glass doesn't absorb taste. And even if you're going to tell me that it's going to absorb, it won't give it off even, nevertheless, right? So therefore, right, they say, the Ran, right, one of the Rishonim talks about that glass doesn't absorb. So therefore, our custom is that we do not have two sets of drinking glasses for dairy and meat. We don't have that. The Ashkenazim are sometimes they're also stringent about that.
Nowadays, our concern is with the absorption of flavor into the material.
Right, but anyway, since the glasses are really being used for cold, so it's not really an issue there. It's only an issue when it's used for hot, whatever. But
what about porcelain?
Yeah, porcelain is a different story, right? So the truth is, to be honest with you, in the poskim that we have, like 200 years ago, or more than that, they say also the Shulchan Aruch is brought down. That China, like things like China stuff. So they say that when it comes to China, it actually can absorb a lot of taste into. The reason is because since it's coated with lead, or it's coated with the glass or whatever, it's coated with something like that. So therefore they say that it can actually absorb a lot.
I'm sorry, this is 200 years ago. Maybe today's porcelain, I'm sure it's different compounds, cheaper compounds. Maybe chemicals and materials that do not absorb.
Yeah, actually, there was one rabbi that I spoke to about this, and this was about I don't know, maybe 30 years ago. There was a certain rabbi that I had, and he told me that he actually checked this issue with the manufacturers and with the scientists, whatever, and they told him that nowadays the coating of these materials, of these porcelain and the china, those coatings do not absorb at all anything.
Right.
They're like totally
because
non-absorbent.
I'm sorry, if they did absorb, in today's washing machines, the material would deteriorate over time. It doesn't.
It's an interesting thing what you're saying. I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, the point is, the custom is to be machmir about that.
Okay.
Even though this rabbi claims what he claims, but really, according to most of the poskim, a person should not rely on that. Should not rely on it. Even though, but I think that definitely is what there seems to be what to rely on. There seems to be what to rely on. Yes. It needs more research, because this rabbi who said it, he himself is a little bit controversial. So I don't know. I don't know if I would want to rely on him 100%.
If we find out the exact compound that covers it, and if it absorbs or not, we can see, right? That's how it goes down.
See, the point is like this, right? That I don't really know if that helps you so much. I'll tell you why. Because the whole point was with the claim of these poskim, it's brought down in Mishnah Berurah, that actually these things, the porcelain, when it's covered with a coating, even though the coating itself doesn't absorb itself, but for some reason the combination of those two substances makes it absorb even more. They say, which is something very strange. Okay. I don't really understand this concept. Right. I really don't get it. It definitely requires more research to understand these things. But the most of the poskim seem to say that we should be machmir. We should try to observe this. What does that mean? That even though your dishes are made out of porcelain, you should have separate for meat and dairy. Should have separate.
What's your name? Did Maran speak about this at all?
Yeah, he as I told you, it's brought down the Shulchan Aruch regarding this. He's talking about the Shulchan Aruch. It's brought down. The rabbi brings down the Shulchan Aruch. He doesn't argue with the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says that these things absorb.
That's it.
Yeah, and even more.
Okay.
They're even more absorbent.
Okay.
So what they really say is like this, right? They absorb and they give off little by little. In other words, they don't really give off everything in one shot.
I see what you mean.
So it's like a continual, giving off of taste.
Porcelain is a form of glass. By nature, glass or steel, the more heat it absorbs over time, it also.
No, porcelain is. I think it's like a kind of a earthenware. It's like some kind of a earthenware.
But glass is too. It's sand.
Okay, that's what you're saying. Okay, yeah, but that's a little bit different, I think. Okay, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I know what you mean.
But what about actual earthenware, like plant? There are some pots nowadays they use.
Like glass is made out of sand, but earthenware is made out of dirt. A little bit different. Yeah. It's a little bit different.
I see.
So what does that mean? Sand is a little bit different substance. It's a very hard substance, sand.
Right, sediment.
But dirt is much softer. It's a little bit different,
Yeah.
Okay, not exactly the same thing. Anyway, the point is, right, that when it comes to these things, the customs have separate. But when it comes to glass, so there, we're not really so...
Rabbi Shalom, you see it?
I don't know. What about the eating of the cow's breast?
We're going to get to that just 1 second. I want to finish this idea before.
Okay.
Right? So the point is like this, right, that we said that... when it comes to these things, there should be a separate, everything should be separate. Knives, forks, spoons, plates, bowls, things like this. Yes. Pots and pans, we're going to get to that too. We're going to discuss that. But the point is, right, that even though these things should be separate, there is a sort of a leniency here with these things. What is the leniency? Leniency is like this, right, that since this is only a custom, basically, this is not really something which is halakha. The sages did not decree this halakha. So therefore, the practical difference is, because it's only a custom, right? We have a general rule, by the way, when it comes to customs. You know what the rule is? The rule is that when there's an emergency case, we can break the custom.
Okay.
When there's no other choice.
Right.
You know what I mean? When it comes to halakha, you cannot break it. When it comes to custom, you can break the custom if it's urgent.
Yes.
Because it's only a custom, you know?
Guests came, you have no more plates.
That's a good example. You know, I'll give you something even more simple. Right. Let's say you personally, you know, without your guests, whatever, you don't have more than one. You only have one in your house, whatever, or wherever you may be. Let's say, right? Right now you went camping, whatever.
Different country.
You know, right? You went to camp, you went to a picnic, whatever. You only got one over there. So let's say you went to a picnic, right? And you only have one knife. So now what do? Right?
Yeah.
You can't get another knife now.
Okay,
you know? So what do? So the answer is, right, that say the poskim, several poskim talk about this. They say that because this is only a custom, so therefore a person can break the custom in this case. What does that mean? That now what he'll do is he use one knife to cut also dairy and also meat. So how will he do that? Right. He'll do it in a way which is, first of all, it shouldn't be too hot, right? The stuff like more like cold, you know, whatever. Not so hot. Not the hand can touch it without being getting right. Yeah, that's exactly. You know this concept. Okay, so I didn't know that you knew it. So what do you call it? So it shouldn't be that hot. So if you cut them cold, so what you do is you cut one, then you clean it good. You know, with Scotch, Brillo, whatever, God knows what, whatever it is you have, right? Right, whatever it is you may have, right, exactly. Whatever it is you may have, you can pour it also on the ground, like you said, right? Clean like that.
Please forgive me.
Or with a towel or something, whatever. Yeah.
I one time read in the Ben Ish Chai for lots of Passover, they used to boil the steel. You can also boil it. Yeah,
that's an interesting point what you're saying. You know, we have to discuss that. Remind me, you know, because this is all important stuff that you're asking about. All important, very important stuff. Okay, so let's go step by step, right? Okay. So here you just want to finish this idea that therefore if a person, let's say, only has one dish, right? One plate, he can use for both. Because, so what does he do? He cleans it, you know, wash it good, and use it for both. You don't have. Well, you don't have, you know, you don't have to go so crazy about custom, you know, that you should, I'm going to eat on the ground, you know, like, okay, you know, I can't, you know, I'll eat on the ground. I'll put my food on the ground. You don't have to put your food on the ground. You don't, if you have only one plate, you can use it for both, you know, but then you should try, whenever you get a chance, to buy another one as well, to buy an extra one, so you can do the custom the proper way. That's the difference, right? And regarding, by the way, that why are we so lenient with regards to this? Because when you're eating these kinds of things, plates, bowls, this kind of, you know, spoons, knives, and this is usually not clearly shown. What does that mean? It's not usually on the fire. These things.
Right.
It's like coming from the fire and then putting it to another utensil. So therefore, they're not usually so hot anyway. Right. And they can't really, like, you know, they don't really have problems with taste. You know, right? Exactly. Not so much. They're not going to retain.
Sean has a problem.
Right. Exactly. There's much more problems there. Okay. So therefore, since they usually use like cold or just warm or, you know, like not too hot, whatever.
Right.
So therefore, in cases like this, a person doesn't have to be so careful about, you know, the taste and all these things. And also, by the way, there's a different reason, because once the taste has sat for 24 hours, it's already kosher. You know, right. It spoils.
No matter what.
Yeah, no matter what. That's a rule, right? I'm talking about the taste, not talking about the dirt. I'm not talking about the filth.
I'm going to ask you a ridiculous question. Yeah. Soup, let's say, or meat that spoils, is it still meat?
Yeah, I'm not talking about that because I'm talking about two different things. We're talking about the taste of the soup.
Okay.
The taste spoils.
Right.
The food is a different issue.
It's a different issue.
It's a different issue. The food could last for a week or two, you know? It depends on how you keep it.
But like if meat is spoiled.
Right.
Is it still meat?
So it depends on how spoiled it is, you know? That's the whole idea. How spoiled did it get?
It's edible, right?
Right. Is it edible, not edible? Is it edible for an animal, for a dog? What are all kinds of things, you know? There's all kinds of issues there. But what we're saying is, right, that taste gets spoiled in 24 hours. It's not usually like that with food. Not like that.
Yes.
Not the same thing.
Okay.
That's a different issue. Right? So, as we said, right, that when it comes to these utensils, that's the rule. But now, when it comes to things which are used for cooking,
right,
pots, pans, you know, things like this, clearly shown that on the fire, issues with this kind of thing. So there, it's a lot worse, a lot more serious. Why? Because over there, the rabbis made a takana.
Right.
They made an enactments regarding this, right? Decrees. What is the decree? The decree is that you cannot use one cooking utensil for both.
Can't.
You cannot. Why is that? Because the taste goes inside. It's
actually on the fire.
You know? Yeah. So the truth is, right, according to Torah, it wouldn't really be a problem. Why? Because you'd wait 24 hours. You know?
The flavor will die.
Right, exactly. Let the flavor die out. You know, spoil. Let the flavor spoil. And then you clean it good. And then you could use it for the other thing. You know, that would be possible. But since the rabbis were scared that the person may not wait.
Right.
It may not be so clean. You know, all these kinds of things. So therefore they said, don't do that. Mm-hmm. This is a safeguard.
Yeah, fence.
Exactly. So since they made such a fence like this, a person is never allowed to cook two things like in one utensil. Two dairy and meat together.
So now my question
or even
comes.
apart. Yeah.
Person has only one pot somewhere in camping trip.
Right.
Does he boil the pot?
So what? Right. If he has one pot, it's a good question, right? So I just want to discuss the basic idea that when you have one pot, so when you have pots and you have like this kind of thing, what do you do? I mean, practically speaking, you should have one for dairy and one for meat.
Right.
By the way, there's also people who buy special pots and pans for fish as well.
This is a little bit.
You know what I mean? For fish.
Right.
Because you're not allowed to have fish with meat. Because it's sakana. That's the Gemara says, right? Fish and meat together is sakana.
Right.
So the question is, are you allowed to use a pot which was cooked, fish was cooked in there, and now cook it with use it to cook meat?
Right.
Well, so the answer is yes. Why is that? Because even though, there's a prohibition to eat them together, but the taste is not. There's no prohibition when it comes to taste.
I see.
So therefore, if you clean it good, right, and everything is nice and clean, there's no residue, you can use it to use meat and also the other way around as well, right?
That's another ridiculous question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There are flavorings.
Yeah.
That have the flavors of meat. They're kosher.
Yes.
But
Yes.
It's meat.
Right.
Can you use that flavoring on fish? It has flavors of meat.
Right. So you shouldn't use it. If there's real substance there, as a substance, some of them are artificially flavored. That's something else, right?
They have.
You're talking about that, yeah. That's a different issue, but if it's naturally flavored, so you should not use it. Like for instance, soup mix, things like this.
Exactly.
You should not use it. But the truth is, to be honest with you, there are some maybe that would allow that, but the custom is not like that. In other words, there may be a way to say that once something becomes dried out, at that point it's not edible anymore until you open it up with water. Like you dissolve it.
Right.
So therefore, since it's not edible, it may be possible actually to say that now, once you open it up and you dissolve it into water, so it maybe actually doesn't have any more designation of what it was.
Like jerky.
You know what I mean? In other words, it's not considered to be meat anymore.
Right.
It's possible to say such a thing like that.
There have.
So, but what is the halakha? The halakha is that we're the custom is not to rely on that. You know what I mean? But the truth is that it requires some research to know that maybe actually there may be some kind of a heter there. But it's not really something that is done. It's not really something which is done. Actually, this happened one time to me, that one person that I knew, he bought like a soup mix, and like one of those instant soups.
Ramen noodle, like
exactly. So this actually was not kosher.
Okay.
You know what I mean? He bought one which was not kosher. He made a mistake, whatever. He wasn't careful. He bought a not kosher one. So I looked inside, to see what's in there, the ingredients, and it had meat flavors, like chicken, whatever, all kinds of stuff, But the question was, regarding the meat was dried, it's like powdered. They dry it out until it's like totally dry, and then you dissolve it into water, and it becomes like gives you the taste. Yeah. Right, exactly, yeah. So the question is that considered to be meat anymore? It's not so clear that that's considered to be meat.
If we go according to what you said about the worms, they're getting shredded in the blender.
Yeah.
But this may be, it's the same thing. Even if the meat is not kosher.
Right.
It's dried up like that.
But here, there's a different reason. You know why? Because over there with the worms, it's a complete body. That's the reason why.
I see.
It doesn't get nullified when it's a complete body. Right. Here, we're not talking about a complete body. We're just talking about the taste of it, of something, right? Whatever. A little bit different. But the point is, right, that anyway, I never saw anybody who gave permission to do such a thing like this. But definitely it does require some research. We got to look into that. Everything in its time, whatever. Okay.
This is the beauty of
okay. Yeah, we love a good challenge. It's good. A good challenge is always good. Okay. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Shouldn't be scared to look into these things.
No.
Nothing to be scared about.
That's the point.
Okay. So anyway, but there's also something which is similar to what you're saying.
Okay.
There's a similar concept, which is that there are certain dairy products which are derived from milk. Right?
Right.
And what happens is that they chemically alter them, though.
Like powdered milk.
Right? Powdered milk is one good example, but powdered milk is not really chemically altered. It's just dried out. It's dried.
Yeah.
Basically. They don't alter it.
Okay.
Because they want to keep the original taste. You know what I mean?
What about like Similac for babies?
What about it?
It's chemically altered, but it's milk. There's milk elements.
Right. So it depends on how it's made.
Like removing the lactose protein.
Right. It depends on how it's made, but I just want to give you a one general idea here.
Right.
Is that there are certain derivatives of milk which are used as additives in foods.
Yes.
And even though they come from milk, but halacha says they're not considered to be dairy.
Really?
Yeah. There's one good example that I wrote about like a year ago, on Facebook, whatever, and I wrote it out over there on those websites, whatever, all these things. I wrote over there that there, the famous example is like this, right? That we have the Coffee Mate, right?
Yeah.
Which is a big company, it's a huge American company.
Right, the creamers.
$1 billion thing, whatever. So they're making a huge amount of money, but what they're doing is, right, there has an OU, there's a hechsher,
right,
but they say it's OUD, it's dairy, right? They designate it as dairy.
Right.
So my question was like this, right? That obviously the question was, because it's a milk derivative. I'll tell you. So my question was like this, right? That is this considered to be dairy? Meaning to say that if I have now like a meat meal, I can't have a coffee with Coffee Mate, right? Because I can't have it. So maybe that's the case. So I looked into it actually, and I found out that the ingredient which is there, which is called sodium caseinate, something like that.
It's a derivative of a protein of milk.
Right. It's a derivative of milk, and what they do is basically they dry it out, and they also chemically altered.
Yeah, it's sodium. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's altered chemically. They use all kinds of processes to make it. So what does that mean? That doesn't really have designation of dairy anymore. Once you alter it and you change the taste and everything, so that loses its designation of dairy.
Is this the same reason why it's allowed to drink milk and then eat meat after, like you told me? Because the chemical alteration of the milk itself is...
No, that's something else. I'm not talking about that. That's because of digestion. That's it's similar. Okay, whatever. Yeah, but actually, it's connected. Yeah, you're right. There is a connection here. There is a connection.
Stomach acid.
Yes. What I mean to say is that the milk is digested very quickly. You know what I mean? That's the reason why. Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit particular, but what are we looking for according to halacha in milk? Flavor, consistency, element, where it comes from. What are we looking for? What makes it milk?
Basically, that it's derived from there. It's comes from milk and has not been altered. It has not been altered in any way. It hasn't been changed in any way. It's what it was. It just came out from the milk. It's a derivative, whatever. But this sodium caseinate is altered. So therefore, what I wrote was that a person can have this after a meat meal, because it's not dairy. Right? It's not really. It's a substance which comes from that source, but it's already altered. It has a different taste. And by the way, they're not putting it into the Coffee Mate because of the taste. Which is important also element, right?
They're putting for the
consistency, right? That it shouldn't cake.
The weight.
Right, it shouldn't get kicked up.
Right.
Become a lump. You know what I mean? It shouldn't lump up. Stay a powder.
Interesting also? People who, like, a lot of Jewish people, they work out and they take these supplements,
right. I know what you're saying.
I don't.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do, and some of them are dairy supplements. And they also have casein proteins.
Yes.
Same idea.
I don't know. You have to check, how it's made, whatever, everything requires... there's a lot of information right now about these things on the web. You can find. So anyway, sodium caseinate. It seems like that there's really a lot of room to be lenient about that, and not to really consider it to be dairy at all. And there are sources for this, by the way, in the poskim and the rishonim. There are. It's not just something we just made up from the sky. Yeah, I mean, this is something with real sources. It's brought down in the poskim,
like
and also the contemporary poskim is brought down, and so forth and so on. Right? We also discussed something similar to that, which is that there are some pills that are made. The coating is made from like pork, it's basically like a pork kind of thing.
Right.
But that's also like altered chemically, right? Exactly, right. It's altered chemically, it has no taste, so therefore that's also doesn't have a dinner pork.
Like gummy bears. Some gummy bears, they have pork gelatin, some gum as well.
Right, that's a little bit different, right? No, gelatin is also an interesting idea. Gelatin is also allowed, by the way, according to Sephardi custom, we allow gelatin.
Because they use the DNA.
Right, yeah.
Pork is the cheapest substance and has the best gelatin because of the consistency of the animal.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So the DNA, they take it.
Right. It's very cheap, yes.
And it becomes gelatin.
Yes.
More accessible,
Right.
Cheaper.
So we're talking about that coating, you understand? That coating has no taste. It's just coming there, right, to protect the food, whatever it is. It's to be a shell, right, to be a shell for it. So therefore, right, that also is allowed because of this, because it's altered. It's already lost. So meaning what? That the general rule is that when you alter something chemically, and then it loses its consistency, taste, whatever, all that stuff, its nature, it really now is considered to be something else. It loses its designation. If it was meat, it's not meat anymore. If it was dairy, it's not dairy anymore, right? Whatever it was, right? It's not there anymore. It's not like that. It's just a chemical, basically now. It's something which just has a different value altogether.
So ultimately, what we're saying is that anything can really be broken down
to
a level that is below the scope of the human, vision or understanding, and then it can be used.
Yeah, sure, right. It's just chemical alteration. You
always told me that the Torah says that whatever is accessible to you, like your vision, you can.
By the way, there's a good example in the Ramah regarding that, right? But down here in the laws of meat and milk, the example is like this, right? That it says the Ramah that in those days, what happened was they used to make cheese in the stomach of the animal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's a big thing.
So what happened was that they used to you put the leather, the skin of the stomach in there. In order that it should, the rennet, came from there, right? The chemicals, right? Enzymes. The enzymes came from there, right? Exactly. So what happened was that the question was like this, right? The Ramah deals with the question: what about if this skin of the stomach, right, got mixed into the milk? You know what I mean? So the question is it considered to be like meat now? The meat. So it says the Ramah that if the skin of the stomach, which is already so dry like wood.
Okay.
So it says it's not considered to be any more meat.
Because it's already lost.
It became like wood. It became like a solid steel. Whatever. It's like it doesn't. It's not meat anymore. Meat is not wood.
Right.
It feels like wood. This thing. It's already too hard, like wood. So therefore, it loses its designation. So even there, where it's not really chemically altered, but it just became just hard. Hardened. Like a piece of wood.
It is chemical alteration.
Right, yeah, in a sense, you're right. In a sense, you're right. It wasn't actively, what I'm trying to say. It wasn't actively altered. It was just happened by itself. So, anyway, the point is, right, that there also, we have the same, so that's also one source for this idea, right?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The Ramah says, once the stomach gets hardened, like wood, it's not called meat anymore, that's it.
So if you have a fear, let it harden for a couple of years and then just destroy it and take the cheese.
Right, but we're talking about if it happens, something like that, we say it's allowed, because there's no issue there.
There's cheese like this in Italy. Yeah.
Oh.
It's a big custom. It's a thing.
Oh.
It's a thing. There are cheeses.
I don't know why it's made like that anymore.
No, they have it.
They do?
Of course. It's like an old tradition.
Oh my God, okay.
Absolutely.
That's very interesting.
The animal, of course, has to be a kosher animal, like a cow stomach. You can't do it in a camel stomach.
Right. No, it was done usually in cows. That's what it was, right? Yeah.
But let's use like a non-kosher animal stomach.
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
Depends on how it's made. Depends on. Usually that would be a problem. Yes. In general.
What about a cow that is treif?
Yeah.
That stomach. It's still kosher animal, but
right. The cow's not kosher. So it's not kosher.
Right.
Yeah, but sometimes depending on how you made it, you know what I'm saying, it can still be done. It can. No, but the truth is, right, that you're right. To make it like this has all kinds of issues.
Right. Because you want to raise the edge.
There's all kinds of issues, but the Ramah says if it dried up, so then it's okay. It became like wood.
Incredible.
Yeah. So the chemical alteration, right, has definitely its sources in the poskim, right, as we mentioned.
So one last thing.
Yeah. Yes.
The boiling.
Yeah.
Also, the eating of the breast of the cow.
Right. Before we get to that, I just want to mention one thing, right? That regarding the pots and pans.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So when you said, right, you cannot use dairy and meat together in one pot, one pan. So what we meant to say was like this, right? That if you now use, let's say, meat, cooked it in a pot, okay? So in order to use that pot for dairy, you must now do hagala. You must put it into boiling water, boil water in there, and make sure that all the taste comes out of there. So it's not enough that you wait 24 hours. So even though from the Torah it's enough, you wait 24 hours, but the rabbis wanted you also to kosher it.
Right.
And make it, and convert it into the other side. What does that mean? It was dairy. Now you want to make it into meat. So you're allowed to do that, right? By the way, there are some Jews that Ashkenazim that don't do that nowadays. They don't convert anymore. They don't do these conversions.
Buy new one.
Right. Exactly. They have two. They have two. Right. Exactly. They don't do it anymore.
I'm sorry. Back in the day, back in Georgia and Bukhara, whatever, Persia, people were poor.
Yes.
They
had limited resources.
Yeah, so you have to
it was limited. Yeah, you had to use all your resources.
Old school method.
Right, exactly, old school method. It was definitely very limited. You're right, absolutely.
Sure.
You can by the way, it's also not because they didn't have money. There wasn't a lot of merchandise available. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Actually, they had a lot of money. These people. Those people had a lot of money. Believe me when I tell you, they had bags of jewelry. Stored up in there. You know what I mean? These people were rich.
Yeah.
A lot of people became like millionaires. They were billionaires, but they didn't have a lot of
merchandise.
They didn't have.
Communism.
Exactly. Yeah. It was limited. The availability was very limited.
Right.
That was the whole thing. Until recently, by the way, till communism ended.
Right.
The availability there was terrible. Even like I'm talking about 30 years ago, 4 years ago, it was terrible. Until communism went down. It was a joke over there, It was like nothing was available. You couldn't get anything, couldn't find anything. It was terrible. It was a terrible situation.
Sure.
They had money, but they didn't have what to buy. They didn't have any merchandise to buy. That was the problem, Okay. So anyway, what we're saying is right that you have to kasher it before, if you want to convert it or use a separate one, whatever. But there's a special thing, right? When it comes to this, what about now b'diavad, right? Or even nechatchila? What about if I take like the same rice? Okay, I cook it in a meat pot. Okay, and that means that now the rice will absorb the taste of the meat.
Okay.
So the question is, can I eat that now rice with dairy?
Well, the taste of the meat is Rabbanan.
You know what I mean? The taste is deraita.
How's it deraita? You do 24 hours, it spoils.
The Gemara says right, but before that I'm talking about.
You're talking about
before, right? Exactly, within 24 hours. Yeah. If it's after that, you're absolutely right. There's no question about that. It's not even Rabbanan. It's totally allowed. Totally allowed. But the question is like this, right? That can I take now that rice, which has a taste of the meat, and use it use it with dairy, right? Eat it with dairy. Put butter on it. Put some butter, whatever, some sour cream, whatever, and eat it like that.
Oatmeal, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. So that's are you allowed to do that? Or you can put it into milk also. There are people who make rice with milk.
Yeah,
they do over here in the shul. This guy makes it over here.
Yeah, like a porridge.
It's called kashi. Kashi. Georgia style.
Rice pudding.
Right, exactly, right. So this kind of stuff, right? So now I made the rice in a meat pot, and I'm making it out with milk.
Right.
Right. So according to Maran Shulchan Aruch, it's allowed to do the lechatchila. Meaning what? No problem. You're allowed to do that.
Right.
Meaning to say that he didn't wait 24 hours.
Because the rice itself is a second level.
So he cooked.
That flavor.
Right. Yeah. He cooked the meat last night. Right.
In the morning he wakes
up. And now he's gonna make rice there in the morning. Right. 24 hours didn't pass by yet.
Right.
He's gonna get the taste of the meat and the rice, and he's allowed to use that, eat that with the dairy. Right. Exactly. Even though there's taste there, he's getting taste of both together, sort of.
Okay.
So the Ashkenazim are a little bit more machmir regarding this. Right. The Ramah says that you're only allowed to do this b'diavad. What does that mean? If you made it like that b'diavad, okay, right, exactly. You can, but lechatchila don't make it like that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Don't make it like that. But we Sfaradim, we even do lechatchila. We make it like that. You know what I mean? We're not concerned at all about that, right? And as you said, because it's a secondary taste. That's what it is, right? It's called not marnat.
This is understood from the laws of Tumah, actually.
That what? Oh, yeah. Well, it's similar to that, right? It's similar to that. Yes. Okay, so you understand what I'm saying, right? That when it comes to these things. That's the way it is. But a person, as we said, lechatchila, right, should have two separate ones.
Yeah.
And this way, right, nothing should be really mixed up together. They shouldn't. But if a person has only one, as we said again, right, so what is he going to do? He's going to have to kasher them in between.
Yeah, boil them.
Right, boil them up and kasher it, do hagala, right? How do you do hagala? You take basically a bigger vessel and you put the whole thing in there.
Right.
You dump the whole thing when the water is boiling, or you finish boiling a little bit, right? Whatever. It's still right. It's still hot, whatever in the first utensil. So you put it in there, and it's going to get totally right kosher. The taste will right exactly one in and out. So by the way, it's not like tevilah.
Okay.
What does that mean? When it comes to tevilah, when it comes to doing immersion of kelim, of utensils, when you buy it from a goy, from a non-Jew, or whatever, that's something else. Over there, you have to immerse the whole thing together in one shot into the mikveh, right?
Right.
But here, when you're doing hagala, you can do half and half.
Portions, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Because there's no issue here with to do it together. This is not tevilah. This is hagala. All you have to do is make sure all the surface was covered with the boiling water at one time or another.
You go half, and then you half.
Right, exactly. You can do that if it's too big, to put in one shot.
Handle included, or just the steel itself where you cook?
You're asking me if you have to put the handle too?
Yeah.
You should put the handle too. Yeah, you should put the handle too. Yes. So this is the way it's done, right? When it comes to these things. So regarding what you said about kahal, right?
Right.
So what's the issue with kahal? The issue with kahal is that it has over there. This is the udder of the animal, right?
Yes.
This is the udder. So the udder has milk inside.
Right.
You know.
Trace is left.
I'm sorry.
When you cut the animal.
Yeah, actually, there's a lot in there. You know, it can be quite a big amount of milk in there, right? So the Chazal say, by the way, how is milk produced in the body of the mother?
It formulates from blood.
Right, exactly. It comes from blood, right? It forms from blood, exactly, right. So because of that, what happens is that's the place of the formation, in the udder, right? Exactly. So since that's the place of the formation, so therefore it's all full of milk,
right?
You know. So basically, what you got to do is, in order to have this kahal, right, you have to first cut the open this kahal before you cook it, and you got to drain out all the milk from there. You know?
You got to actually drain it.
Right, you got to drain it out, let it drain, for a while. So once you let it drain, so then you can cook it, right? You can put it into a pot or whatever.
Let's cook it in a pot, or has to be over a fire?
Oh, what does it mean? You're asking me if you have to put it in a barbecue? No, that's not going to be a barbecue. No.
Why? Like liver, for example, we don't put it in a pot because...
Right, liver is something else because there's blood over there. You know what I mean? There's a big saturation of blood here. But here, right, I'm sorry, yeah?
I'm sorry, I would assume this is a little bit similar in a different way.
Yeah.
Milk, I think is it a bigger prohibition to eat blood or to eat milk and meat together?
Which is the bigger prohibition?
Yeah.
To have blood, well, it depends on which kind of blood it is. There's different types of blood. But if you have there are certain bloods where it's karet. It's karet.
Right.
So that's even worse. You could say, right?
But the blood in the liver is not that kind of blood, Rav. That's the blood that you have from the animal coming out in the first place.
Yeah.
That's before draining.
Okay.
Post draining, the secondary blood that comes out of the meat.
Okay, let me show you the Shulchan Aruch, what it says about this, right? I want to just tell you.
Sure.
Regarding the kachal, right? Mm-hmm. So it says like this, Shulchan Aruch. אסור מדי הסופרים, שם בשר נתבשל בחלב בשחותה, אסור מן התורה. לפיכך אם קראו מלא כחלב לחשבו. So it says if you tear it, right? Mm-hmm. And you drain out the blood, the milk, right? Then you can roast it, right? Mm-hmm. Okay? So when is that? When you tore it, like you tear it open like this.
Yeah.
And you let it drain out, so then you can roast it. As you said, just like the liver, right? But if you do in different way, what does that mean? Shati ve'erev, down and across.
Okay, forward.
Crisscross. Look at crisscross. So there you can even cook it. What does that mean? Right? מותר לצאתו לאוכלו, ואם קרוב בשתי בערב, ותאכול בכותל, and then you got to also squeeze it into the wall, just
press it again.
Yeah, press it, exactly, right. עד שלא נשארה בו לך לוחית חלב, until there's no milk there whatsoever, right? You got everything out.
Like tangible.
Right? מותר לבשתו עם הבשר. So then you can even cook it, right? Even with meat. Right?
Okay. But is it considered meat, parv? What is it? Can I eat that with milk now?
I'm sorry?
That udder itself, the breast, the udder, is that meat?
Yeah, it's meat, yeah.
That is saturated with milk.
Yeah, it has taste of milk in there. That's all idea, right? There's taste. All the milk has been drained out, but there's still taste in there, for sure. No question about it. You're going to get the taste of both of them together.
If you split it like this, right, and you really press it out.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, that means you'll get everything out, more or less, right? More or less everything will get out.
Yeah.
But still, the taste will be there.
Right.
Because it's dried in there.
In it.
Right, exactly. It got dried up. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you'll never get the whole taste out of it.
It's like liver having the taste of blood. It's going to have blood taste. That's what blood is for.
Right, exactly. There's no question about that. No question about that. Okay, so now I also want to tell you another thing, which is what? Regarding the issue of how far a person has to wait, how much does he have to wait, right, between this and this. Yeah. So even though there's many customs regarding this, by the way, So, first of all, let's talk about the issue of how much you have to wait between after meat to eat dairy. How much you have to wait, right? So there's actually several opinions, right? The opinion of Rabbeinu Tam, right, is that basically you don't have to wait at all. All you have to do is just basically bench, say Bikat Hamazon, go to next meal, and you can have the other one. You don't have to wait at all.
Interesting. How old is this tradition? His
Uh,
opinion?
how old? These opinions are going back all the way, to the beginning of the world.
They have value.
Right? I'm sorry?
They have weight.
Everything has weight. We're not talking about lightweights over here, right? Lightweights you'll find on Google. You see, those minor league rabbis over there.
Rabbeinu Tam, he himself, he did this a lot. He fulfilled his own understanding.
I don't know what he did exactly, but to be honest with you, I don't know. But we don't have the videotape on that. Right. We don't have the footage. We don't have the footage of that.
Right.
But anyway, right? So Rabbeinu Tam says like that, right? But we don't do like that.
Right.
There's also other books that say like that. Halachot Gdolot, which is one of the Geonim. One of the former, one of the old Geonim. Right? They say Halachot Gdolot was the first work to be written on the Talmud. It was the first, commentary that was ever written.
Very nice.
Halachic work
that
was written on the Talmud was Halachot Gdolot. It was very ancient, right? Whatever. Right. And over there, he also says like that, like Rabbeinu Tam. So basically, this is an old, goes back all the way. But we don't pass like that, right? But it's definitely a legitimate opinion.
For sure.
So how do we paskin? We do like Rashi or the Rambam, right? The Rambam and Rashi, they both say you gotta wait 6 hours. Why 6 hours, right? Really, the Talmud doesn't say that. All it says in the Talmud is that don't eat this in one meal, both of them.
Right.
So the question is, what does that mean? 1 meal, 2 meals, what does that mean, practically speaking? So according to Rabbeinu Tam, it means finish this meal and start the next one, right away, That's what it means. Right. According to Rambam, no, 6 hours. You know why? Because usually the average meal, the gap between them is 6 hours. What does that mean? In those days, they didn't eat 3 meals a day, they only ate 2. You know what I mean? So therefore, they're eating breakfast, basically, breakfast, which was like a late breakfast, let's say, I don't know, whatever, and then an early dinner, So these were the 2 meals that they had. So between those 2 meals was usually 6 hours.
Yeah, but today we have 3 meals.
Right, but since it was done in those days, in those times, so therefore, right, they said that we're talking about 6 hours.
There's no way to work around that? I mean, our time...
Minimum, right? Minimum 6 hours. So what does that mean? If you ate meat, you got to wait 6 hours. There is also 2 other opinions as well. One is that you can also be lenient and do 5.5 because it's the majority.
I see.
The majority of the hour is considered like a full hour. We go according to the majority in the halacha.
So 5:31 is good enough.
Right, exactly. That would be good enough. 5:30, whatever. Right, and there's also another opinion that says even 5 and something. In other words, once the 6 hour is started,
I see.
It's very considered like it's the whole hour. But that opinion is a little bit off the map, a little bit extreme, whatever. But they say, right? I don't recall, but they say that this can be used in emergency cases. For instance, like let's say you have soldiers, whatever on the field,
right.
The battlefield. They can't wait and all kinds of stuff. So they can use this opinion. But they say, if you're sitting in the comfort of your own home, just hanging around there, whatever, on your computer, whatever, hanging around. So there, you should try to, wait 6 hours, right? That's what you should do. And if you can't, okay, 5.5 is good,
Right.
So you can do that when there's a need for that. You're hungry, whatever it is, it doesn't fit into your schedule, you can't wait, you have to go somewhere, blah, blah, blah. All these kinds of things, right? 5.5 can also work very well. So what does that mean? Whether you ate chicken, or you had beef, or anything else, right? Any other type of meat, you still have to wait 6 hours. Except what? Except the case of fish and the grasshoppers, things like this,
Right.
There are some grasshoppers that are kosher, that, right? So there you don't have to wait because they were not gozer. They did not make a. They didn't make a decree on that.
Is that meat for us?
It's meat, but they were not. There's no decree on that meat, right? So therefore they said, there's also no shchita there. There's no slaughter, right? On fish, you don't slaughter fish. Right, you don't slaughter grasshoppers. So therefore, right, this is one of the reasons why.
Can we eat that grasshopper, or we cannot?
We don't have a tradition for that today.
Are we allowed to?
So if you don't have a tradition, you should not eat it. That's what they say. Yeah.
With Moroccan sitting with.
Yeah, if you moved over there, and you're living over there, and you're going with the community, so then yeah, you could do it. Yeah, no question about that. Yeah, but if you're not with the community, you're just going to visit, whatever, then you should avoid that, right? Because we don't have a tradition for it.
Right. The rabbi, did he speak about this?
But I tell you honest with you, even though we don't have a tradition, if you did it, I mean, I don't think you did like a big sin, whatever, I mean,
yeah.
But it's not proper to do because it's not proper, right? Exactly, because we don't have a tradition for it, so therefore we refrain from it, right? The Tamanim also had a tradition regarding that.
Right.
There are similar traditions. We don't have the tradition, so we avoid it. But Sure. Rashi talks about that, by the way, in his commentary on the Chumash. He explains over there, right, that there are certain things that we don't know that we don't have a tradition on that. He explains what the problem is over there. That it has to be called also the name Chagav. It has to be called that name. It has to have a name like that as well. Besides the fact the characteristics, it also has to have the name as well. It has to be called that. So because of that, Rashi says we're not really sure who has that name. We don't have a tradition regarding this, right? The locust, yeah, exactly.
Okay. It's a huge one,
not necessarily. It could be, it could be any size. That's not the issue, right? How big it is.
I'm sorry, Rabbi. That means that at one point the Jews were eating that thing.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
During the time of Moshe Rabbeinu or whatever?
Yes, for sure, yeah.
So there were other things.
It was considered like a delicacy,
So maybe there are other things that we were eating that we don't have anymore today that we don't talk about.
I don't know. If you mention that, maybe, if you mention it, I'll let you know. But
we have no Masorah, no Talmud on this, nothing.
We lost it because, you know why? Because we live in countries that they don't exist over there. Where they exist, they only exist in hot climates, in Middle Eastern countries like that, hot places. They don't exist in these places. So that's why we don't.
But what if there are other animals?
I mean, you're not going to find grasshopper. You're not going to find locusts in Europe. You know what I mean? It's not going to find them.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's the reason why we don't. That's the reason why they didn't have a tradition regarding that.
Very interesting.
Okay, so in Georgia we didn't have them. No locusts over there. Okay, so it was it's like Georgia is a very mild climate. It's not a desert climate. It's not like that. Yeah, it's very mild. It's very mild. It's like Jerusalem, like this kind of climate, like not too cold, not too hot, but it's it's like yeah. But the truth is, Jerusalem is hotter than Georgia. Okay, whatever. So anyway, getting back to what we said, right? You have to wait 6 hours. Now, what about the other way around, right? From dairy going back to meat, right? So before we get to that, I want to tell you there's also other customs as well. There's also a custom of 1 hour, right, which is brought down in the Ramah, right, brought down from several Rishonim. That they used to wait, Ashkenazim used to wait like 1 hour in the old days. There was a custom like that, even though nowadays we don't find it so much.
So they were
kind of like it got abolished. This custom, not so frequent anywhere. So in the old days they were waiting 1 hour only. The Ashkenazim, most of them, unless they were like high pious people, whatever, Hasidim, whatever. So, but the average person was waiting only.
The Ramah talks about that in Shulchan Aruch.
Yes, the average person was only waiting 1 hour. So. What's the reason for this? Because there are some poskim who say like that. They do have what to rely on, and also if you look in the Zohar, as we said, right, the Zohar also seems to be like that.
Towards 1 hour.
Zohar is talking about 1 hour, like eating the same hour. These two things, right? So therefore, that seems to be the shita of the Zohar as well.
Wow.
So what happened was that as time went along, this minhag kind of like got abolished, kind of, bit the dust, whatever,
Right.
So therefore, most Ashkenazim nowadays wait 6 hours, like us. Pretty much we have the same custom as them regarding this, right? But when it comes to going the other way around, cheese to dairy to meat, so there's also another custom, by the way. Before we get to that, there's also 3 hours. German Jews do 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Also
not anymore.
They still have this kind of custom amongst German Jews. Yes.
We're talking like modern Orthodox German Jews?
No, we're talking about normal people. Okay. Normal Jews.
Okay.
You know how the German Jews look, like they have that, those funny hats, those.
Right, I get it. I know some people.
Those guys, right? From Switzerland, those guys,
Right.
Those guys, the ones who are very accurate. The timing is very important to them.
People are strict.
Very, very accurate. Whatever. They're never late. Nothing's ever late by them. So everything is on time. So regarding the cheese, right, the milk going into the meat. So there's a little bit of a different custom, right? What does that mean? That really, according to halacha, brought down the Shulchan Aruch, you don't have to wait at all. What does that mean? That if a person had dairy, whatever it is, whether it's cheese or milk, whatever it is, he could just basically, if he wants to eat meat right away, he could just, like wash his mouth. What does that mean? Take a drink of water, eat some bread or something, some cake, whatever, some food, right? And he would be able to, and make sure his hands are clean. If he ate it with his hands, he had some pizza with his hands, whatever,
The best way to eat.
So okay. You come from the old school. Okay. So the point is that once you're all clean, your mouth, your hands are clean, so then you can eat right away. That's what Shulchan Aruch says.
Right.
But the truth is, right, that there are some who have a custom not like that. According to Zohar Kadosh, a person should also wait an hour between them.
Right.
According to a simple understanding of Zohar Kadosh. There are those who say that the Zohar, is interpreted a little bit differently, whatever. But anyway, the point is that there are some who are they have a custom to wait for an hour.
Sorry, Rav. Does that mean that Rabbi Shimon was doing it for an hour? Is that what it means?
It's possible, yeah, very possible, very possible that he was doing like that. But the truth is, these big rabbis were waiting. They were machmir on this a lot longer than the minimum time.
Than the average person.
Yeah, they were doing a lot more. They were doing a lot more in these things.
Case.
But I'm maybe not regarding the cheese. The cheese first and then the meat. But when it comes to meat and cheese, the Gemara says they were very, very machmir about that. The rabbis waiting very, very, very long times, very long intervals. So anyway, getting back to what we said, right? That there's also Ashkenazi custom, which is what, that when you have like aged cheese, 6 months, hard aged cheese,
Right, Parmesan.
So there they wait like 6 hours, just like if they ate meat or something. You understand?
Even if it's grated?
Right? Yeah, it doesn't make a difference. So why is that? Because they say the taste, right, of the cheese stays with you for a long time. It's very harsh taste. So it's like the meat, just like the meat has the taste stays with you for a long time. It doesn't digest very fast.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the reasons, by the way, that we don't eat, you have to wait 6 hours between meat and dairy is because two opinions, right? According to Rashi, it's because of the taste of the food that stays in the stomach and comes back up. Whatever. It's still right, exactly. It's still there. And the other opinion, the Rambam says, because in between the teeth, right, the meat can stay there.
Long.
Right, exactly. Like you need a toothpick to get it out. Floss. You gotta floss it out there.
Then again,
so because of that, it takes 6 hours to get that stuff out of there. And then it becomes like saliva already. Like anyway, mix it like the putty.
I was gonna say chemical.
So therefore, until 6 hours, you have to wait because of those two reasons. So when it comes to the cheese also, some Ashkenazim have this custom that they wait 6 hours also between, right? When it comes to hard cheese, which is aged for 6 months or more, right? But we Sfaradim don't have this custom. So therefore, whether it's aged 2 years or 3 years or 1 to 6 months or whatever it is, by us, it's always the same thing as any other cheese or any other dairy, right? That we don't wait at all. According to the Shulchan Aruch, according to the Zohar, right, an hour, you know what I mean? But the truth is, Morino Rabbeinu Maran Alav Shalom, he wrote in his books that they don't have to do like the Zohar to wait an hour. He says it's not a custom really. It's not the Sephardi custom to be machbir like the Zohar. But the Ben Ish Chai brings down actually there in his town in Baghdad, when they ate hard cheese, they used to do like Ashkenazim, wait several hours. 2 hours, 3 hours, depending on the age of the cheese, right? How many months it was aged and so forth. You know what I mean? So what happened was the Ben Ish Chai, right, brings down many things like this, Ashkenazi customs that were held in Baghdad. So this was also one of them. But we who did not live in Baghdad, also I don't think there's many Jews living in Baghdad now. Otherwise, their head will be chopped off. You know how it is, right? If you go in, your head will not come back with you outside. So therefore, right? So therefore, it's not recommended to go there and live there, right? Don't try to be like the Ben Ish Chai now in this generation. Not recommended, right? So therefore, since we're living in Eretz Israel, or we're living in Europe, or we're living in America, whatever. So places like that, the custom of the Sephardim in most places is not to wait 6 hours. Right. So therefore, there's no reason, right, to do like the Ben Ish Chai, and therefore a person can wait. Doesn't have to wait at all, right? Just clean your hands, your mouth, right, and drink something, eat something, whatever, and you're all set to go into the meat meal. Baruch Adonai le'olam amen. Chazak u'baruch. My battery's dead, man.
What is really in depth? This is good. I realize more and more. It's like a.
Yeah, it's an ocean. It's an ocean. Yeah. It's an ocean. Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't stop.